Welcome to Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don. I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. Before we hop into the podcast today, I just wanted to just mention really quickly, my maturity assessment is on my website for all companies to take advantage of some of the experiences that I can provide with regards to overall explaining the performance of organizations and their scalability. And so I would hope that you'd go to my website and click on the button to take the maturity assessment for your organization, and let's connect. So with that, I wanted to just bring in my guest today on the Life Science Success Podcast. My guest is Sid Shrivastava. Sid is the Vice President and Head of CMC and Global Technical Operations at Cue Biopharma. So with that, welcome, Sid.
Thank you, Don. Pleasure is mine. Pleasure is mine. Absolutely. And, to our listeners, I would say, the maturity assessment that Don was saying, like, I have gone through that. I looked into his website. It's really good. You should, all of should give it a try. I think it will be very helpful. At least it will give you a viewpoint there.
Yeah, it's funny because we're going through right now behind the scenes, we're going through a little bit more with it as well, trying to provide people not just at the end a score and kind of, where the company stands, but the next step would be like, okay, so what do I do with it? Right. So all of that's getting built out right now. I mean, there's much more to come in the future, but yeah, it's thank you for taking it. I appreciate it. I try and provide these resources for companies that are, sort of looking at themselves and going, okay, well, why does it feel like we keep adding more and more people, but we keep getting less and less efficient? And so, yeah.
Exactly, Don. Exactly. And, and it doesn't hurt to have a sanity check once in a while. Where do you stand?
Yeah, that's right.
Unless, somebody has an appetite to spend a good amount of figure to bring in somebody and get it done.
Yeah. So one of the things I didn't read with regards to your bio actually was, I mean, you have an extensive background in life sciences. And, as I was getting prepared for the show, I was like, in this case, I think given your background, it'd probably be better for me to not dilute where your experience is and let you share it a little bit. But I mean, I'm amazed with your experience from early stage to late stage. You're published. I mean, you have all of this experience. So would you mind sharing it a little bit with the listeners?
Yeah, sure, Don. But before I do that, I would say, I'm following your podcast for quite a while now, and it is very enlightening the way you interact with your different leaders that you bring in. And per my observation, there are two things that were very common. All of them were very driven, and all of them were essentially in the field, in this our privileged field, as I always used to say for the science, life sciences, are in here just to serve the patients and the end goal. They are serving, everybody is serving their own field, in their own way. But I guess that's the bug that we all of us have.
Right.
Once we are in this field, it's kind of an addiction. We have to do that. And everybody was doing that. Now, with that said, coming to the question that you said, about me as the way I consider myself, and I always tell this, at least to my wife, whether she agrees with it or not, that's a different story. But I always tell her that, I'm an adventurer by nature and a scientist by profession. So if there is anything unusual going on, I would be poking my curious nose in that one all the time. So I would be there. So with that said, when I was growing up, how it all started, I was always, having a mindset of questioning things, why it is happening, why it is not happening. And when I was growing up, I think at the age of 9 or 10, I got a food poisoning. My parents took me to the doctor, and doctor gave a prescription. I don't actually remember what, and I'm just paraphrasing what he meant at that point. And he said, these are the doses you should take, but do not take the overdose, because, he was basically guiding my mom that, if you take more than X amount, it would be having side effects. And I'm like, what do you mean side effect? He was like, it has chemicals that are not good for your health. And I'm like, again, what do you mean? He was like, it is the way it is manufactured. And that triggered, what is going on in here? Why, how the manufacturing take place? And I was like a very young, naive child at around 9 or 10 age. But still that sparked my interest in the life science and how things are done. I kept on asking my mom, like, hey, what does he mean by that time? What does he mean by saying that? And she tried to answer in her own ways, and then eventually she gave me an example of, like, hey, imagine yourself as, scientists are the bullets and the doctors are the soldiers. So
Mm.
soldiers and bullets have to come together to complement each other to give you the effective defense. And that's what it is. And I was like, oh man, now I get the points. And then of course, one thing led to the other. I did my BS, MS, PhDs in medical biochemistry, and with blood platelets cardiology essentially as a specialty. And doing that at the time, nanotechnology was emerging again. Because of my curious nose, I poked my nose in there and I started working on creating some biocompatible nanoparticles and understanding, by doing all those fun stuff, all the receptors that are found on the platelets which lead to our cardiac strokes and everything. I started understanding extracting protein and how they behave on those surfaces of nanoparticles.
Mm.
And that was the first step of the process development for me. And I developed a couple of analytical methods how you can predict the behavior of a protein depending on the surface curvature X, Y, and Z that goes into the chemical engineering formation. And that gave me, I wrote a big program and I got NSF overseas fellowship, invited by states here, so came here for a postdoc, and into the material engineering. So again, started in biology, biochemistry, now in the material engineering department, worked on nanoparticles, proteins, and everything. Then went to the Cornell University there in chemical engineering, and from there I was picked up by the industry as a process development scientist. And now, as a scientist in process sciences and industry, I have seen everything starting from, as you were mentioning, and from the initial TPP, target product designing, or the molecular biology, to the end mile shipment to the patients out there, and almost every shade with under the sun, whether it's a facility extension, FDA inspections, writing INDs, getting BLAs, in multiple territories, whether even including Russia, China, Japan, everywhere. So have seen a lot of requirements, process improvements, process, what you call the reprocessing on the commercial products, almost everything. And in the end, what I realized, Don, and this is, I take immense proud in that. I realized that this is the field that is served by some very talented, very dedicated scientists and engineers, as well as all the business professionals, whether it's sales people, quality assurance people, whether all on the base bench scientists, all on the executives. Everybody is so driven, and I think this everybody are attached by a string called privilege. Everybody knows that they are in the privileged field and they have to give their best for somebody who's looking towards us. So if we slack on our side, somebody else is going to pay on the other side. So that's what I am. That's what I am. And again, I'm very honored and very humbled to be here. Thank you so much for calling me here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's great to have you here. And that, as I looked at all of your experience and everything in preparation, I mean, it was one of those moments where I was like, it will be interesting because, one, as you and I were talking before we, came live, I haven't talked to people a lot about the, sort of what goes into drug manufacturing a lot on this podcast. So, I mean, we've had maybe 4 guests, I think, total out of, the over 100 episodes that we currently have out there. So, I mean, it's just, not an area that we've explored, a lot in the past. So can you tell us, what is a typical day like for you as the vice president and head of CMC and global technical operations at Cue Biopharma?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I would say, in short, and I would be going into detail for that. It could be surprising, interesting, exciting, challenging. So I'd say, when you look at the CMC as well as the tech ops, it involves a lot of functions in there. It starts from the early stage. Now it starts with the process development, tech transfer, then you crosses the line. It has got stability analytical development, then you got drug substance manufacturing, drug product manufacturing, and it leads next step, packaging, labeling, and distribution. So as you can imagine, that's the portfolio, which molecules are in what stage of the life cycle management, what you need to look into, whether the early stage development is going good, how the tech transfer is going on, whether you have got the internal manufacturing or external manufacturing lined up, all the slots are there, contracts are signed, whether they are within the approved budgets or not, as well as maintaining the clinical supply in compliance with the various territories you are supplying to. Whether the sometime you would be amazed how much interaction we have to have with our US petrol and customs whenever we are basically flowing the material out or bringing in. And the collaboration products are in place, clinical sites are having what they are needing. And that on a good day, if you're lucky enough, you may have to deal with some of the deviations that are going on in the manufacturing, as you
Right.
may aware, some of the shortages on the raw material, slot changing. And of course, of late, we were having a lot of those because of the strained supply chain, because of the pandemic. And that is continuing, unfortunately, because of the given war that's going on here too right now. So, things are very, very exciting. And that not to mention now, you tag in quality and compliance portion of it, whether your, upcoming INDs are ready, regulatory dossiers are ready or not, whether your annual updates are on track or not, whether how you are dealing or basically maintaining the phase appropriate of your appropriateness of your clinical assets, whether they need late stage optimization or they are again in the asset evaluation stage. So those all things too. And again, on tag that everything on top of that, on a lucky day when you're super lucky, you would have to have a couple of BD or business development calls, so where you have to propose the propositions, how this molecule would be, commercially viable, and of course how it is going to help us out. And then, so everything all included, as you can say, it's not a one-man show. I am personally heavily dependent on my teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always blessed on like to have very talented, excellent colleagues, seniors, subordinates. And it's amazing how much you learn on daily basis.
Right.
It's super amazing how much you learn on daily basis. They always come up with creative ideas, and those creativeness is very much required in these today's time because of the increasing cost pressures.
Mm-hmm.
Cost is increasing, cash runway is getting shorter day by day, so you have to be very creative. And of course, necessity is the mother of invention. They come up with some very creative idea. Hey, this is how we should plan, this is how we should interact, this is the timing, this is how we prioritize, reprioritize, deprioritize, and then again prioritize everything. And this is how the things are going on. So this is a typical day in my life. And then when you come back home, it's another, right? I think it's a more complicated life.
Yeah.
Dealing with the kids and then explaining them what did dada do in the school all day.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's so much that I could take away from that. Right. So, I mean, one, you've mentioned the dedicated people that we have and, the brilliant people that we have. I mean, if anything, the COVID vaccine for me was just another reassurance of how brilliant people are with, sort of, hey, we're going to take this adenovirus and then we're going to use that to transport, in the knowledge around, hey, this is actually, bad for our body. I mean, it's just amazing to me that the level of sort of knowledge that the scientists have in terms of this is how we're going to get this thing accomplished, or, whatever it might be. And, on the other side, now I have grandkids, all my kids are grown, and my grandkids are the same way. I mean, it's, they come home from school and they're like, I don't want to have to go to school, but at the same time, they learn these things about how to question and how to, sort of answer those questions in school. That's so important, that then could lead to these amazing, jobs again. So, yeah.
Exactly, absolutely, Don. I couldn't agree with you more. Again, like, kids have the best minds, right? Like that, because they are not confined by the boundaries of physics, chemistry, math, and everything that we have created artificially. For them, everything is
Right.
same. They would ask you like any kind of innocent question, but those, if you dig into that, those would be the best in-depth scientific questions and postulates you can have. So I think, kids inspire me a lot. If I have to have any questions, I would just ask them. Like other day, my daughter was asking, hey dad, can we not put all of your good medicines into these apples and bananas and everything so that we don't have to go to doctors? And I was like, edible vaccines once in a while, once upon a time, was really a concept. I don't know where it stands right now, but to think things like that, like, because they are not bounded by that banana is a botany section versus vaccines is a biology or medicine section of things. So
Yeah.
that creativity is something that inspires me. Again, like, you just need to have that inquisitive nature to poke your nose in there, and you will find a lot more things there all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, it's hard whenever you do have the knowledge to start with a beginner's mind. as well. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. So you were at Thermo and Sanofi prior to your time at Cue Biopharma. How did that experience prepare you for what you're doing now?
Uh, that's an excellent question, Don. And I think, Thermo. When you say like my stay at Thermo, it was Patheon Biologics, a biologics CDMO, and I was with them. And I always tell to my team, all my colleagues, that if you are in the technical operations business or CMC business, you should definitely work in a CMO for a couple of years, if not more, because the experience that you gain at CMO is enormous. Because you can imagine that you have a multiple sponsors or multiple molecules coming from different companies out there. You get to see almost all the different possible permutation combinations of complexity that possibly you might not be seeing in a particular one biotech or big pharma, because everything might be of similar molecule based on a similar platform or things like that. So I think I learned a lot from the technical standpoint. And again, as we all know, CMOs run on kind of less of a margin, so to speak. So that also tells you how to reach, and of course they have to manage their capacity utilization to the maximum, so that to increase their ratio of profit in the end of the day. So you get to learn how to efficiently manage your resources, how to reach to the desired results in the best possible way. And of course it also tells us the power of negotiations. What is your least acceptable outcome, what the customer, your customer could be your regulatory agency, or the customer would be accepting, and what is the kind of a must do and then may do portion of it. So I think that my time at Thermo made me kind of technically enriched. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I am basically, whatever I am, I'm kind of technically vaccinated for almost all the possible scenarios, that now when I work on any other molecule, possibly I may have the solution for that. If not, I would have an intuition what to do next to find out that solution. So I
Right.
think that's an enormous gift to me. I think that I got an opportunity to work with Patheon Biologics, and I worked with Patheon Biologics, and Patheon was entering into the US market to establish their biologics business. Also got to see how you establish the facilities. We worked on the new Accelerax systems at that time. We established the first disposable systems, things like that. And that is some very golden cherished memories I have. And of course, as I said, the technical enrichment that I have, that possibly I would have not gained anywhere. Now coming to the Sanofi side of things, Sanofi was a completely all different ball game. It's I got all the commercial products along with the clinical development, so you get to see that enterprise mindset. You need to watch around site operations, site operations efficiency, supply chain ruptures, interactions with the FDA on a regular basis, on PAIs, FDA, BLA filings, IND filings, NDA filings, managing multiple different markets to basically find out the molecule, to create different flavors, because Japanese requirements are different than Russian requirements are different than US and Europe requirements, and likewise. So having different, installing the serialization and things like that, maintaining the very matrix organization across the big network, and then of course channelizing all the information from all the sites to your superiors all the time. So managing, starting from managing the $1 billion portfolio, where you have like around 100 different commercial drugs, small molecule biologics, and what you call devices in the
Mm-hmm.
portfolio, to and of course managing the profit and loss statements on that one, to helping them manage that part out too. And of course getting into the strategic relationship, performing due diligence on the taking over either a molecule or a new company or a site, things like that. So that kind of, that gave me that enterprise viewpoint. So when I combine my Thermo and Sanofi, I think like I have seen almost, when I say I have seen almost every shade under the sun. So that definitely matured me as a professional. And I think that paved the way for my success, if there is any, on the technical operations side of things, that I could pick on the things that that satellite view of 10,000 feet, and I could tell, the looking at the process within 5 minutes, hey, these are the areas we need to focus on to fix this out. These are the areas where we can gain the efficiencies. This portion is going good, we don't need to touch that part. So to have that intuition, that satellite view, I think these two companies were the real, I would say, the basis of my career and my learning. And I'm very indebted to them. Like, I was given opportunity to work with them. Not to mention, made some very good, long-lasting friends that we always chat all around.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, it's always interesting to hear a person's career as well, because it's you may have started out with something in mind in terms of what your career will be, but the reality is oftentimes our careers sort of unfold as we go along. So there's not necessarily a proven one path for everybody, as you move forward, and definitely these experiences have to contribute to what you're doing today. So with that, who is Cue Biopharma, and what is it that they do? What sort of products do you have?
Absolutely. So, Don, as I said, like, personally for me, innovation is something that I look forward to. It has to have some meaning to that. And Cue Biopharma is one that company. So here in short, and I would be getting into the details in our next few seconds, like we produce biologics here at Cue Biopharma, and that are immunomodulatory. That means you can use them as a immuno-oncology or autoimmune diseases as well. We have multiple products, and again, we will be going into the details, and couple of clinical trials going on with some good collaborations right now. Actually, we are entering into pivotal trial for one of the molecules. Now, that said, when we talk about oncology or in the immuno-oncology oncology therapies that we have got right now available in the market or in the development so far, they are worked on the activations of your T cells in the body. And what happens is, like, T cells are one of the immune response cells, and they each of those T cells have got a tumor specific receptor, what we call TCR, T cell receptors on top of that. And once that part is, and if the right T cell is activated, it can expand itself, create some natural killer cells, and can take over that tumor, and basically can dissolve that, so to speak. And the way current immunotherapies work, they basically bombard the patients with interleukins or cytokines, and in an hope to essentially activate the T cell that is responsible for the tumor as well. So essentially, of course, they do activate T cells that are responsible for the tumor, but in the process they do also activate the lot other T cells that are not tumor specific, creating a lot more what you call there is a term they call cytokine storm, and a
Hmm.
lot more adverse reactions.
Right.
And for that reason, those drugs are less effective in clinic, and their efficacy is very, very poor, and their pharmacokinetics is also poor. I think the known MDT, maximum tolerable dose for those kind of drugs, is around 0.8 mg per kg of body weight. How can you improve it? Of course, you can. We have got our partners that do cell therapy. You take a human's blood out, you inject, basically improve the amount of the T cell that is responsible for that particular tumor, and then infuse it. But whether that is feasible, that's an excellent, clever, neat science, but that's so expensive that you cannot infuse it every 3 weeks like we do for our biologics or something like that, and it's impossible. It takes millions of dollars to develop it, and around 450 to 500,000 per dose. That's practically impossible. I mean,
Yeah.
so now coming to the beauty of what we do at Q and the beauty of that platform, we develop bispecific FC fusion proteins. What we did was, first we took the IL-2 molecules, we masked them, we basically modified them in such a way that we mask them that they won't get activated on a non-specific TCRs, and they get activated when their mask is removed, and their mask is contributed by the TCR receptor or TCR antigen. So basically, we made, of course, everything is covered IP from IP standpoint, and everything from the business standpoint, so to speak, as well. So we have a bispecific FC fusion protein. One portion has got a co-stimulatory interleukin attached to that, and the other portion has got a receptor for the TCR that is specific to a particular cancer, or solid cancer side of things. So what happens is, when we infuse our drug, it goes to the tumor specific TCR exposing T cells, not the entirety of the whole bunch of T cells. So, and then it activates that particular population to expand, and of course it expands out around, like we have seen, around 90x fold of expansion, the fact that you would get at cell therapy portion of it. and then of course it takes care, it attacks the cancer and takes care of that. Now we have got, as I said, we are into the clinic, and that's one portion of that modularity. I would be coming into the next portion soon after this. So what happens is, and I'm sorry if I'm looking more
No,
excited, because I always get
no.
excited on that part.
I mean, it is exciting. Hearing the way that you guys approach this side of the development is
Yeah.
exciting. So yeah.
So what happens is, like, we get around 90x increase. So what happens is, like, our doses, we are in the clinical trial, we have dosed around 70 or 80 patients at this point, and we have seen excellent results. And our MDT, remember what I said, the cytokines have 0.8, we are at 8 milligram per kg of body weight, a kind of an order of magnitude higher without any toxicity. We just stopped, and our current clinically effective dose is 4 milligram, half of it. So no toxicity, and we have seen median overall response rate way higher than our reference material. And there, everything is in the public domain, we can look into that. And we have seen people are living, and some people are basically, their tumor has completely dissolved. It's a clinically proven data, and we have got like 90 patients already dosed. FDA has given us a fast track designation for that, and we are going into the pivotal trial. Now that's the one portion of the story, that clever science that we did. Now the second portion, where the CMC part again basically amplifies it. So as I said, like, there is a masked IL-2 portion, FC portion, and then there is a 10 amino acid FC receptor antigen. What happens if I just remove those 10 amino acid receptor and change it with another amino acid receptor? I can just simply tag it for another cancer, because IL-2 is still the same, TCR is still the same. So that's how we created another molecule, and we went to the agency and said, hey, you know what, like, the biggest amount of toxicity that we see in the current drug comes from the IL-2 portion. Our structure is like 99% similar to our first molecule, and we have just changed 9 amino acid out of the 330 amino acid molecule out there. And do we need to do IND tox? We don't feel, because we have this data. Agency was like, yeah, you don't need that. So that gives you 6 months of jump start. You're directly starting into the clinic with a clinically effective dose, and we have proven that out. So we have another molecule in the clinic with that, and FDA endorses that modularity of it. So that's the clever science we did here, that we have got a modularity, we have got reduced costs, because it's saving 6 months in a clinical trial or pre-IND talks, and everything saves you definitely in millions, if not multi-millions. So and of course, and you have a modularity, you keep on changing those 10 peptides or receptors on top of it, and you can keep on generating any kind of immuno-oncology therapy. So I think, like, we are at the cusp of basically shifting the paradigm of immuno-oncology at this point. As I said, like, our molecules are already endorsed by the regulatory agency. One of the molecule has got fast track going into the pivotal trial. Second molecule, we didn't have to do IND talks, and we are very sure for the next molecule as well, we won't be requiring that in moving forward. Now that's a part of immuno-oncology, and that we can always, if we are activating something by using the same concept, we can also deactivate. That means it has got the equal potential in autoimmune as well. So we are also starting a trial on that side of things too. So it's very exciting. That's what Cue does. And and remember, like, we are getting the same efficacy as you would get at the cell and gene therapy, but potentially around like 90x less cost, making it more affordable. So I think that's what attracted me to this company at Cue, here at Cue, and the clever science, and we are building on that one. And I think, like, I couldn't be less proud of anything than what I have done so far. I think I'm very proud, and I think we are marching ahead in the right direction.
Yeah, perfect. So whenever you mention the autoimmune things that you would be targeting, what sort of targets do you have for autoimmune diseases?
So we are looking into the basket set of trials at this point, and of course, much of the information is not out yet in the public domain, because we are in the business deals and conversations right now. But it would be interesting. I could just say at this point, so to speak, like, some of the information is on the website, and we can pick from that.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Yeah. No, I completely understand. And I mean, it's always one of those things where, just like you with the questions that you were asking your mom and your doctor about the drugs, I continue to sort of go down a path until you're not comfortable anymore. So I
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
understand. Absolutely. So, in your role at Q, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face?
I think I would say again, more than the challenges, I think it's more of excitement. Every day is another exciting day. You
Mm.
know, you, like nobody comes to office saying like, yeah, today would be my worst day. So there are no challenges. So for that reason, I always say like, challenges is a bit of a stronger word. I think like it's more of excitement, and certainly the excitement could be like, if a clinical trial material is being prepared and we run into an issue, to change, to turn around the manufacturing cycle and bring the molecule back in time, takes around 6 to 8 months of lead time. So that, if something were to like that were to happen, that could be a problem. And we look into that. At some time infusion is going on, and there is a occlusion alarm, like, somehow your pressure alarm went on in the clinic. So what went in there? Because like, then the clock starts. You have a patient sitting in the clinic and you have got something going on. You need to figure that part out, respond them quickly, because like, we do contribute in the pharmacy manual how to use that product and everything, what's going on, look into that portion of things. So those are the kind of excitements that we look into that. And I think like, I always look into, every day I make a point, as I said, it's a team effort, collaborative effort on. So it's again not a challenge, but again the excitement that I always make sure every day, how can I engage my team more and more, how can I keep them motivated. So that's, I always keep at least half an hour in my calendar every day, just to look into how is everybody doing, is there any problems. And you would be amazed to see, hey, our PO didn't get approved, so we are not yet able to secure the slot at a CMO or analytical lab or centralized lab or things like that. So just helping them out and those kind of things, not again a challenge, just the excitement and what's going on, how can you motivate them. Sometimes people are green, sometimes they are young, sometimes they are not that much free to come to you and speak to you directly. So just to educate them, hey, like, we are a team, you just come to me and tell me, and I'll be able to fix it out. If not, I would be directing you to somebody who knows what to do, and how
Yeah.
the things should be moving forward. So those are the kind of things. And I would say the another challenge that I would say of late that I have observed in last 2 years is on the finance side of things. Like, we were having approved budget. Now the budget needs to be cut, because you need to have that strategic vision. You cannot rely on current turbulent market, so to speak, and as the market is undergoing correction, as we were discussing before. And for that, what that means, as a biotech, you need to preserve your cash, so
Hmm.
that you can be shielded from these market effects. So how to do that, how to reprioritize what you were trying to eat everything all together because of the modularity, the problem of more that we are having at company Q. And like, how to basically reprioritize everything, how to convince everybody, hey, we have got everything, we can, if we want, we can trigger, but now is not the right time. Let take a break, let's focus on the clinical molecule, take them to a certain stage, after that we trigger, so that we can preserve our cash. And now basically taking that same information and convincing your CMO partners,
Yeah.
collaborators, if you have any, that hey, we know we signed the contract, but now there is slight change in the priorities. Please don't charge us any penalty, because we are dealing with this way.
Yeah.
So you having that kind of fun conversations and convincing them. And everybody realizes that, everybody, if you explain them, communication is the key. If you explain them in the right way, so to speak, like, everybody obliges you and they do work with you, they always tend to work with you. And of course there are certain middle grounds you tend to find out and move forward. So those are the some things. And then of course you deal with if you have a business conversations, now then you're talking about completely different. You're
Hmm.
talking about convincing them how manufacturable your molecules are, showing them the data, why it is, how. And of course if you are talking about a new molecule, you are providing them all the preclinical data, why this molecule is a potential good IND molecule or a drug molecule, and what would be the clinical effect, and things like that. My pharmacology colleagues in the company sometimes are frustrated because they are not able to find the monkeys are taking like 9 months of lead time before they
Oh,
can
wow.
start the in vivo tox studies and everything like that.
Mm.
So those are the some of the some exciting stuff that we keep on pondering every time. And believe it or not, like again, necessity is the mother of invention. We come out with so many creative ideas that I'm amazed. Oh, I never thought this could be done this way.
Mm,
But yeah, but now it's
yeah.
our platform. So that forces us to develop a new platform way of thinking, that this is how we have to approach a kind of a fishbone. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. Yes. So there are three questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
yeah, I think like that's one of the easiest question and on. So I think like that smile on our patient's face, and as well as on mother's face, like they are able to spend some another new year, another birthday, which would have possibly not been possible until that our drugs were provided. I give you an example, like
Mm,
working at Sanofi, we were at enzyme replacement therapies like Cerazime. Cerazime is for Gauchers, Fabrazyme for Fabry disease, and Myozyme for Pompe and Thyrogen and all those kind of stuff. So Gauchers, the maximum life expectancy is about 9 years of age. Imagine the young child that may pass out by the age of 9, and the condition of their mother. So they used to have, they will call patients for the kind of the interactions just to motivate the teams here. And once we have a boy called James with their parents were very humble, very they were showing all the gratitude for the good work that Sanofi Genzyme was doing. And then somebody asked James, 9-year-old boy, like, hey James, how are you feeling? He was like, I want to thank, I still remember his first sentence, all the good people at Sanofi Genzyme for working so hard. Because of them, I'm able to see my younger sister and play with her. Like, it was so much emotionally moving for every, like at least half of the population there. That was a big site, like 800 people, Framingham site, 800 people at the time. So
mm,
like that was emotionally moving for at least half of the people there. And I think like
yeah.
that was the inspiration, and I was there in that big bunch. So I think that was the inspiration. I think that is sufficient for me for my entire career. I don't need any more inspiration. I think, like as I said before, it's a privileged profession. If I am slacking by an hour by a day, I'm costing somebody else's life on the other hand. So like
Yeah.
I come to office every day, like with like all of our colleagues, with a target in mind that we need to get this much approved, we need to get this much work done, because we need to save somebody's life at the other end. So I think that's what inspires me. That was the easiest question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I started out my career in healthcare at Grant Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio, working in their cancer area. There was a lead researcher there that had an investigational drug. Dr. James McCann had an investigational drug there, and I remember just watching patient after patient pass, and I was so frustrated. I was like, this is the worst thing in the world to have to live through. And I give all the credit to the caregivers that can do that day after day. It was I'm even getting emotional now just thinking about that situation, and how tough it was overall, just watching those patients. On the other
Absolutely.
side, Dr. McCann used to always say to me, he was like, look, their goal is not to, live forever. Their goal is to make it to the next wedding or the next birthday or whatever it might be. And it's hard to sit and watch that, but at the same
Yeah.
time, the work that you guys do and the work that, caregivers, do in terms of providing this care is so important.
Absolutely, absolutely, Don. There is a lot in what we do, and like every other day, like one of my clinical colleague for the ongoing trial, as we were talking about T cells,
Right.
what we call immunostat platform, they were like, the patient without the active tumor lesion, in whom the tumor is completely dissolved on the
Mm-hmm.
treatment here,
Right.
he was like, I'm so thrilled. I can't thank you enough. Like a big letter came to the doctor on the clinical side. That doctor called our clinical counterpart CMO, Dr. Matteo Levesati, and he told me, like, said, like, look, this is what is going on in here.
Right.
And like that gives you the feeling, oh, we did something good. We did
Yeah.
something good. So like I cannot afford to have a rupture in my supply chain, or a break in the supply chain at any cost. If
Right.
somebody tells me, hey, this product is not going to be delivered on time, probably I would be on their neck, like, make it happen. I don't care how you do it, just make it happen.
Yeah, yeah, right. And what concerns you?
Dan, like that's interesting question. And I could be a little bit off here too. Like, looking at different movies since my childhood, I feel like there is a big potential of misuse of this healthcare technologies that we are developing. I mean,
Mm.
science could be used in either direction, and you know, I think somebody was discussing in your podcast few sessions back. It's like Theranos. I think
I
you
mentioned
you
it.
you were
Yeah,
telling that,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, the Theranos was one example, but likewise, all those conspiracy theories around COVID that's floating around,
Hmm.
things like that. So I think, God forbid, if something to that effect comes true, like, how well prepared are we? And that is one thing that concerns me. On another thing, on the lighter note, when people say they are multitaskers, that concerns me because I think, like, our minds are not prepared for multitasking. We can do multiple tasks simultaneously. That's different than what people claim to be multitasking. That concerns me. Somebody else, like, I can multitask. That, like, dude, you're not focusing on something. Well, just work on what you're doing, then we can focus on something else. So those are
Yeah,
the two things that especially concerns me.
yeah. From the multitasking standpoint, anybody that's around me as an executive, oftentimes you see meetings that I've led. I've actually asked people, look, can you just leave your mobile device, leave it somewhere else? If you have to bring it in the room, leave it in your bag, briefcase, day planner, I don't care. And then lastly, if you're a parent where you have to have your phone in the room because who knows, maybe somebody's calling, with regards to your child or whatever, just leave it face down. I mean, if it's
Yeah.
if it's an urgent call or whatever, you can turn it over at that moment and have a look and, double check and, not really disrupt things. But the one thing, I mean, our minds are constantly, pulled away from what we're focusing on because of, especially our mobile devices, this idea of, multitasking. You're, like you said, we're just not capable. If you want to do something, at much less than 100%, you can try and do it, by dividing your attention. So yeah, I completely agree.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And last question, what excites you?
Innovative science or idea or a neat science excites me a lot, because that again provides me, and I think, like, as to us as a community, a hope that could be turned into something useful,
Hmm.
especially if that innovative science occurs in field of life sciences. I would be super excited, because that will provide me an opportunity to learn something, and just keep on developing on that one. Like, I'm super excited with this Q platform at this point, that I think this could be, as I said, a paradigm shift in immuno-oncology, what we are doing right now. So, this could be a game changer in all the therapies, and game changer for a good. So, like, so any kind of innovative science, a neat idea, clever idea that could be turned into a functional molecule, always excites me, and I'm always up for it to lend my experience in whatever way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sid, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing with us all of your experience. I greatly appreciate you being a guest on the Life Science Success Podcast.
Thank you, Don. Thank you so much for your time today. And of course, pleasure is all mine. It was lovely speaking to you today.
Thanks a lot.